trusted Elisha, and his leprosy was cleansed. You may be the chosen seed of Abraham. You may be the people of the covenants, but that will not bring you my salvation. If you cannot accept that you are spiritually poor and captive in the same way that a Gentile woman and a Syrian leper recognized their need, if you do not realize that you need a year of the Lord's favor, then I cannot save you.
If you cannot recognize you are in need of a year of the Lord's favor, then I cannot save you. If you cannot realize that you are spiritually poor and being held captive, again, I cannot give you my salvation. Ooh, those are some strong words today from The Chosen, Season 3, Episode 3. So strap yourself in today. All Things Chosen, Season 3, Episode 3. And wow, those words, I don't know if they ring true to you, friend, but for me, they are massive. I feel like that is where I spent the majority of my lifetime, believing I had the answers, believing that it wasn't about something outside of me, but something within me. And you're like, Ashley, you're always like it's within. This is a different kind of within. When I say it's within, that means listening to the internal voice that is Jesus, that is the Holy Spirit, that is actually outside of this illusion. Not what he's talking about in this moment is where you believe as the persona that you have all the answers, that you can get yourself out of here. And if we rewind this a little bit and go back, it starts out with, him really, he's in his hometown and he's sharing that he's the prophet and he's stirring up the water, right? Just like Jesus does. But one of the things that he says is no prophet is accepted in his hometown. And I find that interesting, and it's something I've really learned along my journey, not to say that I'm a prophet, but I think if you've done any sort of healing or growth or whatever it is where you have shifted the dynamic of old relationships based on where you are at today, you can relate to this statement. Because it's like you go back to those places. Let's say you used to be an alcoholic and you've since, found your, freedom from alcohol, whatever that looks like, but it no longer has that hold on you. And then you go back to your hometown where you were an alcoholic and they view you through that lens. Therefore, they are not open to accepting anything new from you, most likely. Sometimes there's a few people, and we see that in Jesus' hometown. Some of the people that are closest to him, which is interesting but beautiful, are able to see that shift. And maybe it's because they feel it so deeply. But that's what Jesus is saying. He is saying, you see me as the little kid Jesus. You see me as the kid that was naughty in, I can't remember, rabbi school or church school or whatever they referred to earlier, and always trying to stir a ruckus and, and they're just not able to shift. So then they say to him, a true prophet would not deny his own people of signs and wonders. This is said before this, when Jesus is really making a point. And that's the point he's making, is essentially the signs and wonders are not a magic trick that people think, that Jesus is some sort of magician. It is the faith in the people that it occurs with. He meets them in their faith and allows the miracle to come through. He's just kind of like the placebo, you could say, for the miracle, but you have to have the faith that he is the placebo. If you don't have the faith in him, then there will be no sign or wonder. So it's not that Jesus doesn't want to do signs and wonders for the people of his hometown. I mean, later he raises Lazarus from the dead. Lazarus is one of the closest people from his hometown. So that is not the case. But the case is for those that cannot see him in a different light, that cannot allow Jesus to evolve, right, from the small child that was seen as meek and quiet. I mean, before this as well, someone else at the festival is talking about how Jesus, they've heard he claims to be the Messiah, and the person is like, that can't be true. Not the Jesus I know. He's too, I think they say, like, quiet and meek to like try to claim stake in that. So that shows you right there that people aren't open to seeing him in a different light. And we so often are I know minds, know what a prophet should look like, know what the Messiah should look like, know what it should look like to get to enlightenment, right? Like right now, a very big visual, at least that I'm familiar with for enlightenment, is like rock chiseled bodies, you know, these massive get-togethers where we're having all of this shamanic healing occurring and, you know, transcendence and all of that. And the I know mind, the ego thinks like, that's enlightenment. That's how we get there. But how? How do you know that's true? Like, have you experienced that? Do you believe you are in a place of enlightenment? Is that something that you feel you were in charge of or something outside of you? I mean, this is the core and the essence of what Jesus is saying here, is that if you are experiencing yourself projected in a body right now, you are spiritually poor. And it's like a 12-step program. Step 1 is admitting that you are spiritually poor. Step 1 is acknowledging that I am spiritually poor and I am captive, meaning I am stuck in the grasps of the ego belief system, and I need someone or something outside of that ego belief system to lend that hand. And what the visual that's coming in my mind is when Simon, you know, I don't know if he loses faith or he questions his faith and he's walking on water, but he falls in. For a moment, he falls in. And Jesus reaches his hand down into the water and pulls Simon up. To me, that was a beautiful representation of what this moment of surrender that Jesus is referring to, of acknowledging and recognizing you are spiritually poor and recognizing you are captive to your own thoughts, your own I know mind, but instead to be able to surrender and have faith and trust. Faith and trust is not, I'm going to plan, I want to have $1 million. I want to obtain this level of success. But so I'm going to surrender and trust that I will get there. No. That is not faith or trust. You know how many times I believe that was faith or trust, especially when I got really big into manifesting, because manifesting is really about deciding the outcome you seek and then relieving all the weight to have the faith and trust and allowing it to come through. But that's not faith or trust when you have already decided the outcome. That is not faith or trust. And again, Jesus is sharing that here. Like the outcomes you can see, the only outcomes you can see are the outcomes you see within your cage, right? Think of Plato's allegory of the cave. Plato. I hope I studied under him back in a past lifetime or would love to meet him today. But anyway, Plato, the allegory of the cave is such a beautiful representation of what we are dealing with every single day. And that's what Jesus is referring to. We are the prisoners still in the cave. We are not even a curious prisoner yet. We are not even willing to acknowledge that we are a prisoner. And if you are sitting in the cave and you're not even willing to acknowledge you're a prisoner, then you cannot be helped. You cannot be reached no matter how hard someone tries, because you don't even see a problem. You don't even see what's going on. Therefore, you wouldn't see a solution to it, if it makes sense. So your I know mind, which he's sharing in his hometown, he's sharing to everyone, like, you are in the cave, but you believe you have the answers to get out of the cave. But the problem is you have no clue in fact, what the cave looks like, or where the doors are to get out of the cave, because you are so stuck in the cave. Your solutions are actually solutions to solidify you as a prisoner even longer within the cave. But once you are able to acknowledge that you are spiritually poor and you are captive, and you fully trust and surrender the blind faith, right? Think of the woman that just believed all she had to do was touch Jesus. She was the woman that was bleeding for many years, and all she did was touch the prayer beads off the very edge of his robe, and she was healed. And immediately she was like, "You healed me." And he was like, "No, your faith healed you." Right? Jesus did nothing. It was her faith in the placebo of Jesus that healed her. No one in that room, well, very few, right? We see later Lazarus. Lazarus is raised from the dead, because I really think Mary, the way it's depicted in The Chosen, his sister Mary is the one with the strongest faith within Jesus. And she's also depicted in this season 3, episode 3 as well. But it is the faith that the signs and wonders come from. It is not Jesus walking around with a magic stick. It's not Jesus walking around with fairy dust. It is, in fact, Jesus emanating the pure love that we all know we are, that gives us permission to tap into our own remembrance, which in turn tends to project itself into this illusion as healing. It just so happens. It's not always the case, right? And if that's what you're expecting, again, you've wavered yourself back into not trust, but a decision of an outcome you want, and you're turning, in the past I talked about turning God into your errand boy. That's what you're doing when you've decided the outcome you are seeking, and you hand it over to, God, Buddha, Jesus, Holy Spirit. I don't care what you fill in that blank with, but something greater than you. You have turned them into your errand boy, and you have said, "I know what's best. Give me this." Jesus can't work with that. He can't create signs and wonders when you are dictating him around and that you truly don't believe in him. No. And for myself, when I watch this, to me, it's been those moments of, believing I'm a little God, conversations with God, really going down these rabbit holes of, this is a playground here for me to just have fun, and which still just does not make sense, because the duality of the pain, why would I want to feel the pain and suffering? But any moment that I actually fully surrender, meaning I give up the means and the outcome, and I truly just get out of the way, like Jacob Collier says, and allow spirit to come through me, are the moments that the most beautiful things are created, the most beautiful messages come through. And I watch my own videos after, and I'm like, whoa, that was a message I needed to hear. Because it wasn't the persona of Ashley, it was spirit coming through. And spirit knows exactly what we need in every single moment, will not fight for our attention. It will not fight for a front row seat at the, opera, or to be the opera singer. Instead, it will always sit in the back until you invite it forward. And you can only invite it forward by shutting your mouth, getting out of the way, trusting, allowing, leaning into the ease. That is where spirit lies. That is where, when you lean into the ease, to me, that's you ultimately saying what Jesus says, until you realize you are spiritually poor and captive. I cannot help you. You cannot receive my salvation. To me, that is leaning into the ease. When you acknowledge and admit that, is the moment that you're like, ease. Because the ease is the path that's laid out by spirit. The ease is the path that's laid out by Jesus. The ease is where, the signs and wonders occurred. The ease is where true faith and trust exists, and it just is. Gosh, that statement is just such a beautiful statement, because it literally shuts it all down. It just is. And that's ultimately what Jesus is saying here. And of course, it's not a favorable statement, just like this video may be prickling you right now. It is not a favorable statement because this is how you've always been doing things. And it's frustrating to hear a different perspective that kind of blows everything out of the water and has you shift 180. But the reality is, if they knew what was best for them, if they were not spiritually poor and they were not captive, then why do they continue to suffer? Why do they continue to hold these congregational moments to talk about the potential Messiah coming to save them? You would not be saved if you weren't spiritually poor or captive. You would not need to be saved. Right? But the problem is you're saying you need to be saved, but you're also saying you are not spiritually poor or captive because you're the chosen, the seeds of Abraham. That does not matter. You can be whatever the heck you want to be. You can be the wealthiest person in the world. You can be the nicest person in the world. You can be, all the list goes on. But until you fully surrender and trust, you can't receive the salvation. It's not possible. The salvation comes through you, and it's not you as the persona. It's the Spirit that comes through. Ooh, wow. Okay, well, just so you know, that was like my 20th time recording this video. There was so many things that got in the way the other day. So obviously it was not useful, so I put it on the back burner and came back to it a few days later, and I feel amazing. It's exactly what I needed to hear today. And even though the other day I did multiple episodes, it was exactly what I needed to hear in those moments too. I was really leaning into, I know what's best for me again. My I know mind, and hearing and allowing Spirit to come through and come through and come through in sharing this message was really just a reminder to myself to fall back into that place and remember I'm spiritually poor and captive, and only then the miracle can come through. The signs and wonders will only come through when I fully trust and surrender. That's where salvation is, my friend. Woo! Season 3, episode 3 of The Chosen. Wow, wow, wow. I hope this video resonated with you. I would love to hear below what is your greatest takeaway. And as always, any suggestions you have for any other episodes or any other TV show you would love for us to just bring the lens of something different, a different perspective, that is so beautiful. But as always, my friend, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and remember you're worth it. Much love. Bye-bye.